So welcome everybody to our webinar about Virtuozzo Linux or VzLinux, which is a perfect replacement for CentOS. I want to note some housekeeping items before we start our webinar. First of all, we have another a person from Virtuozzo here, which is Denis Silakov. Actually, he's the inventor and the developer mainly behind our upgrade and conversion utility from CentOS 7, CentOS 8 to VzLinux 8. The second thing which I want to note is we have a Q&A session at the end. Since we are recording this webinar, everybody should ask his questions or her questions in the Q&A session. Otherwise, they will be not part of the recording if they are just typed into the chat. And they might be lost once somebody wants to view the recording. So let's get started. So actually, let me switch to the first screen. So let me give you a quick introduction about myself. So my name is Mike Wormy. I'm user of Virtuozzo technology since the early days. So with 20 years hands-on experience on Virtuozzo technology, and using it 10 years in the hosting industry. And I'm driving the product success since 10 years to eliminate its weak points, make it better for our customers, identify their pain points and resolve them. I have also strong expertise in cyber infrastructure appliances, special focus on combining cyber protection and virtualization to make it a perfect solution for hosters and service providers. I have a strong passion for technology, always looking for cool and amazing new features which are unique and must be implemented in our products to make our hosters more successful and growing faster. Beside product management, well, I have a passion for technology and I love to fix small bugs in open source, which mainly drives our business as well. So let me give you a quick recap and history about Virtuozzo and our strong commitment into open source. So in our 20-year history, we developed a lot of components and features in open source ecosystem. So we have a very strong commitment into open source. All our commercial products are based on top of it. And in open source development, one important, probably the most important key factor for measuring success is amount of contributions. So our engineering teams are actively contributing to several open source projects. Mainly it's KVM, QEMU, Virtual Machine Monitor, and libvirt. Which are the three major components in Linux virtualization nowadays. And in the past 4 years, we have been one of the top contributors to these projects with the fourth highest number of contributions. So even before some large companies, well-known companies like Intel, Google, Amazon, Oracle, and so on. Of course, there are some which contribute more like Red Hat, but we have a significant commitment to open source virtualization. So when or where we began. So our history and story with virtualization began roughly around 2001, so 20 years ago, when we first presented the first container virtualization solution that allowed to host several virtual environments on a physical server. It was mainly developed for hosters, increased revenue per server significantly, up to 10 times. And it was a great success on the market because Virtuozzo was the first technology which allowed customers to increase their revenue and a virtual environment significantly. It was a game changer for the hosting market. So once we published it, actually majority of VPS providers have begun to start their business. Later in 2005, we released OpenVZ, or Open Virtuozzo, which was our open source container-based virtualization solution running on top of Linux. So it allows to run multiple containers, fully isolated, fully secured, and on a single server, just enabling better server utilization, ensuring that applications do not conflict with each other. Each container performs and executes exactly like a standalone dedicated server. So with a Linux guest operating system, a container could be rebooted independently. Users have root access to it. They can assign IP addresses, have full memory access to their container environment, to processes, to files. Then they operate fully independently. And a couple of years later, so in 2012, we introduced a solution which combines virtual machines, containers into a single solution with an integrated high-performance software-defined storage, just to offer high availability, better cost efficiency, to use to leverage all resources in a physical system in a more efficient way. And also in the same year, we released another open source project, which is called CRIO. It's checkpoint and restore in user space. It allows to freeze running applications or part of it and to create a checkpoint to a persistent storage as a collection of files. And later, you can use these files to restore the running applications from the state when it was frozen. Due to the fact that it runs in user space, it allows to use it on multiple architectures. For example, you can freeze any application on x86 machines and restore them later on an ARM machine. And the distinct feature of CRIO is that it's mainly implemented in user space. So no kernel dependency anymore. So when you suspend or freeze an application and it, for example, fails for whatever reason, there's no case anymore that such operation can crash the kernel and crash the physical node where you run, for example, multiple containers. And in 2018, we released P-hole, which is basically an extension to CRIO, which allows live migration and makes it possible to live migrate workloads which has been suspended by CRIO. It's an iterative migration approach. With a memory tracking, also with tracking of memory changes, which makes migration very fast, and also downtime of the application very, very short. So we can basically freeze an application, move its data, and incrementally migrate the changes from those running applications and resume it on the destination machine. And since 2019, we are stepping into the future with our new multi-tenant hyper-converged solution, which is Virtuozzo Hybrid Infrastructure, which combines storage, service, and compute in a multi-tenant capable solution. And now, so in 2021, we have released already, Virtuozzo Linux. And what is Virtuozzo Linux? So first of all, it's a fully free and open source Linux distribution, which is a one-to-one rebuild of Red Hat Enterprise Linux from Red Hat. So basically, we take the sources and rebuild our Linux distribution on top of Red Hat sources. We are delivering 3+1 flavors. So basically, what does it mean? It will be available in 3 community-based flavors, one for containers, one for virtual machines, and one for bare metal, which is basically an ISO image which you can download and deploy on any dedicated server. And one enterprise flavor, which will become available later this year, which basically gives commercial support and certification of third-party applications running on top of it. It's it supports multiple hypervisors and, of course, hyperscalers. So it's supported as a guest operating system to run under Virtuozzo, under KVM, under Xen, under VMware, for example. And we are publishing already templates in hyperscaler marketplaces. For example, for AWS, we have uploaded everything already. The publishing is in process, which takes some time for Amazon to review it. But in a couple of weeks, it will become available. We have a very easy upgrade and conversion utility. Right now, we have a ready-to-use utility to upgrade on the fly from CentOS 8 to VzLinux 8, plus the possibility to convert from CentOS 7 to VzLinux 8. For CentOS 8 to VzLinux 8, it's already available as RTM. You can use it. And for CentOS 7 to VzLinux 8, this is what we will show today. It's available as a beta version. So it's in GitHub, you can download it, you can use it and provide feedback, but it's not ready for production systems right now. But this will become available later this quarter. Well, actually, not this quarter because quarter will end tomorrow, but so in Q3. Why we did it? So first of all, we have very strong experience. We have 20-year track record already in a stable fork and stable rebuild of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So we have an automated build system. It includes fully automated rebuild of any sources published by Red Hat, build validation tests, which are automated, and we have a lot of experience in it. We are a trusted partner for hosters already. So we have our commercial distribution, which is Virtuozzo Hybrid Server, and also OpenVZ, which is available and based on top of VzLinux. And with 20 years in business, anybody will get single vendor support for both solutions. So either for our Linux distribution or for our commercially virtualization products based on top of it. We will deliver continuous support. It's very important to mention because everybody knows the situation with CentOS that Red Hat stopped or announced last year end of life of CentOS 8. It was a surprise to almost everybody. They announced it for December 2021. And we are delivering continuous support. We did this since 20 years already. So we have VzLinux 6, VzLinux 7, VzLinux 8. So we have a strong commitment, strong experience, and we can guarantee that we deliver continuous support in future. So first of all, it's because it's our base operating system for our commercial products. And secondly, we have a lot of experience in building enterprise-like Linux distributions. And we will deliver updates as long as Red Hat publishes sources to their enterprise Linux. It's already available, I've mentioned, so we have VzLinux 6, 7, and 8 for containers, conversion utilities available for CentOS 8 to VzLinux 8, not only for OpenVZ, also for virtual machines, for bare metal now, and for containers on our Virtuozzo hybrid server. So what are the available features as of now? So we released RTM version of our community edition, which is based on latest Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8.4. We have VzLinux 8 as a template for containers, as a guest operating system for virtual machines, as an ISO image for running on top of bare metal machines. We have utility to convert CentOS 8 to VzLinux 8 for any kind of workload. So it doesn't matter if it runs inside containers, inside virtual machines, or on top of bare metal. And Docker images are also available and published already. And what is in beta stage right now is our CentOS 7 to VzLinux 8 upgrade utility for containers, for virtual machines, and for bare metal. We will come a bit later to it because we will demo it today and show it to everybody. So this is available as a beta as of now. So what is on our roadmap for the second half of this year? So now, first of all, we have still our community edition, which we are going to maintain as long as Red Hat publishes sources to Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8. And when they announce Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9, we will continue to deliver VzLinux 9 as a community edition, of course. And so in Q3, we want to publish our CentOS 7 to VzLinux 8 upgrade utility as RTM. And we are going to publish our templates in hyperscaler markets. I've mentioned already that in AWS we did it already, so it's in the reviewing state of Amazon, and we are going to publish cloud images for OpenStack. Also in Q3, we are going to introduce our enterprise edition of Virtuozzo Linux or VzLinux. Basically, it's VzLinux 8 with control panel support, with commercial support, with commercial troubleshooting, and so on. In Q4, we are also going to introduce Acronis backup support for our community edition. Actually, also for our enterprise edition, but Acronis will allow to back up both editions. They are not different compared from kernel or compared from applications. They are both built on the same sources. It's only some licensing restriction. And in Q4, we are also going to introduce our enterprise edition with enhanced capabilities, like ready kernel live patching, which we have right now only for our commercial Virtuozzo hybrid server product and Virtuozzo hybrid infrastructure product. So it allows to apply security fixes for specific kernel modules or kernel security flaws on the fly without the need to reboot the physical machine or the virtual machine. And we are going to introduce optimized flavors. Actually, for containers, we have already some optimization. I will talk a bit later on the next slide, or one of the next slides where we have comparison. And we are going to introduce a hoster edition, which is primarily focusing on a LAMP stack and focusing on WordPress installations. And of course, I've mentioned already commercial support and troubleshooting and enterprise digital signing. So what are the benefits of VzLinux compared to CentOS and other distributions? So first of all, compared to CentOS, it's our time to release. We are always ahead of CentOS when we are going to release updates to VzLinux 8. So for VzLinux 7, it was an average already 22 days when we were faster compared to CentOS. So once Red Hat published a new release like 7.7 or 7.8, we are in average 22 days faster in adopting these patches compared to CentOS. In VzLinux 8, it's even better already. So in average, we are 48 days faster compared to CentOS rebase of the Red Hat Enterprise Linux sources. And we are, of course, improving this significantly as of now. The reason is obvious. CentOS 8 is almost end of life. So it's one of the very strong benefits to be as fast as Red Hat in rebuilding their source code. From performance point of view, actually, I've mentioned already that we are going to introduce different flavors with optimizations for our enterprise Linux distribution. So one flavor for containers, for virtual machines, and for bare metal. So especially for containers running on top of Virtuozzo hybrid server, VzLinux or the latest VzLinux 8.4 is already up to 25% faster than all the competitors available right now, like CentOS 8.4, Rocky 8.4, or Alma Linux 8.4. This is because we know our technology. It's our Linux distribution. It's our virtualization stack, so we can highly optimize it to run it more efficient in our containers. Actually, it's achieved without any patches, so it's not something that we need to break compatibility with Red Hat Enterprise Linux. We can just optimize configuration for our container technology. So about availability. So right now we have system container templates. I've mentioned already they are available. You can install them on latest Virtuozzo hybrid server just via YAM. We also have application container templates already available in Docker Hub. So you can use Docker PAL and deploy Virtuozzo Linux 8 inside Docker. Our conversion utility for containers from CentOS 8 to VzLinux 8 is available. You can deploy it via YAM on top of, for example, Virtuozzo hybrid server, or you can download it from GitHub to do the same from inside the virtual machine or bare metal system with the conversion utility on top of Virtuozzo hybrid server, there are some benefits. You can do mass conversion. We do a snapshot of a container, so if something fails, we can immediately revert as a conversion. We have a simulation, dry run. We can do it unattendedly, so you can start it in a maintenance window and do it overnight for a huge amount of containers. And our container upgrade utility, which is currently in beta, but it allows you to convert CentOS 7 straight to VzLinux 8. So it's also available. You can try it, download it. It's quite simple. I will show it in a couple of minutes. And of course, I've mentioned already our virtual machine and bare metal conversion utility. It's RTM. You can download it from GitHub. It's pretty much a similar utility to what we have for mass container conversions, but this allows you to run it inside a virtual machine or on top of bare metal. And we have our virtual machine and bare metal ISO images and images already available as RTM version, and here are the links to it. And more information you can always get on VzLinux.org or on Virtuozzo website. Yeah, so basically that's it from the presentation. So actually we already have some Q&A session, but I'm not sure if we have already questions. Let me check. No, not yet. So first of all, you can ask questions right now if you want. I will just wait like a minute or two and later switch to the demo part of this webinar. But maybe somebody have already some questions or has already some questions right now. Just a question from Sean in chat. Have you been talking to Plesk about support for VzLinux and any plans? Actually, yes. There's also a feature request in their public user voice, which asks for VzLinux 8 support. Actually, they have already VzLinux 7 support. So when you go to Plesk website and look for supported operating systems, you will see already VzLinux 7, but not VzLinux 8 at this moment. This is still in discussion with them, and of course we have plans for it. But I cannot commit on any date because it also relies on them. So we are driving this not aggressively, I would say, but we are driving this with a significant amount of resources to make it available at least in a very short future. There's a question from someone anonymous, just wanted to get in touch to estimate running part of our commercial cloud on Virtuozzo. Well, much appreciated, and we can always discuss it. So basically, you can either drop me or Christine a mail, and in the presentation, you will see also my contact details, which are here. So you can always provide feedback, or we can start discussion commercials or some other options. This is all fine. There's another question from Thomas. Will VzLinux support the CentOS 6 special interest group repositories out of the box like yum install blah blah blah, or is it planned? For example, to support Cluster FS server? Actually, it's a good question to Dennis. Dennis, are you still here?
Yes. Of course, I'm here. And yes, we do have plans to add such release files. We just need to carefully review which ones are we really going to add. So in general,
yeah,
yes,
for example,
particular cluster is a good candidate.
Yeah, and actually, Thomas, if you have some like some priorities or some list of things which must be supported from your point of view, just tell it to us. This is perfectly fine, because in this case we can prioritize it and do what is most demanded from customers, prospects, or users, however we will call it, and we can prioritize it and implement what is first needed as first time. VzLinux is an open source and free tool from Virtuozzo. Well, actually, it's not a tool, but it's open source. It's an enterprise Linux distribution based on Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So fully one-to-one compatible, like Masa competitors right now, like CentOS, like Alma Linux, like Rocky Linux. But it's our Linux distribution, which we built already since 20 years. We never promoted this actively because there was CentOS. There was no need for it. But since CentOS is almost end of life, and there will be no CentOS 9 besides CentOS Stream, which is unstable part of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, where they test and try new code and so on. We did this since 20 years, and now we are just promoting it more actively. But it's available open source enterprise Linux distribution, fully free. You can do whatever you want with it, and we will just add later commercial support to it if you need it. But it's not mandatory. So somebody says, I just want to use VzLinux, it's cool. I want to have some CentOS replacement for free, you can use it. This is perfectly fine. So let me switch. Actually, I will monitor this, but and answer the questions while we are doing this conversion or this upgrade from CentOS 7 to VzLinux 8, because it takes some time. Let me switch to it. Let me first, I need to stop presentation. Okay, I hope everybody can see my remote viewer session. Dennis, can you confirm it to me? Do you see my screen?
Yes, everything is fine.
Okay, so let me log in here. So what we have CentOS Linux 7. So we can also check it. So this is just CentOS 7.9, latest version. And to upgrade it, we have some instructions. Actually, they are available in the GitHub link, which is available in the presentation. So you can just try this later on your own. What we need to do is we need to install a couple of packages as pre-requirements, like yum utils, for example. So let me just, I'm not sure if I did it already, but so let me do this. It's already installed. So then we need to add the VzLinux repository. So now it has been added and enabled, and we need to install VZ upgrade package. Let me do this. So it installs all the dependencies required for a VZ upgrade package. So a lot of Python libraries and so on. Takes, I would say, a minute or two. And now we need to disable the VzLinux repository. Actually, all these steps are described in the documentation. And let's check if there are some updates pending from CentOS. No, this is already a latest CentOS 7 installation. And now we can use VZ upgrade to check, to make some dry runs. So when it checks if it's possible to upgrade this CentOS 7 installation. There's also a parameter which is called skip VZ. This is needed because it's a CentOS 7 installation. This tool also allows you to upgrade VzLinux 7 to VzLinux 8. But since it's CentOS 7, we just have a flag for skip VZ. So there are at least no upgrade blockers found. And now it does some pre-checks for packages, repositories, and so on. It takes, I guess, 1 or 2 minutes and provides a log file at the end, which you can read. Let me switch quickly to the questions in chat. Now, there's a question from from Andrew Moya. Is there already containers for a kernel of Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8? Well, actually, internally, yes. And we are going to publish alpha version of Virtuozzo Hybrid Server 8, fully rebased on Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8 later this month. So end of July, beginning of August, it will become available. We will also announce it publicly. So in this case, you can play with it. There will be also, of course, which is one of these outcomes of this utility, a way to upgrade Virtuozzo Hybrid Server 7 in place to Virtuozzo Hybrid Server 8. Which is very important. But this is fully based on Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8 with newer kernel, modern architecture, new driver support, new user space, and so on. VzLinux is only the operating system. After installation, I can't see any PL, CTL, VzCTL. Yeah, that's right. So actually, I have the slide is not in this webinar presentation, but if we are talking about our software stack, VzLinux is just the one-to-one rebuild of Red Hat Enterprise Linux without any additional patches. It's just one-to-one clone. We take the sources from Red Hat Enterprise Linux, rebuild it, and replace only the logos and the names. Then next in our software stack, there would be OpenVZ. In case of OpenVZ, it's also rebuilt of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, so basically VzLinux, plus our container patches in kernel, plus our user space applications like VzCTL for managing containers and PLCTL for managing containers and virtual machines. This is just with our bare container patches, so no KVM improvements, no integrated backup, and so on. In this case, if you want patch KVM, patch QEMU stack, integrated backups, our Virtuozzo Hybrid Server comes in place, which is our commercial distribution based on top of VzLinux, on top of OpenVZ. This also includes VzCTL like OpenVZ, PLCTL, plus KVM patches for performance, density, signed drivers for guest operating systems like Windows, and integrated backup, and so on. And commercial support, of course. So VzLinux is really the bare operating system without any patches, just rebuild. You see now it does a couple of checks, checks all the packages and so on. And what it has to do during upgrade from CentOS 7 to VzLinux 8. So now actually everything is fine. There were no errors reported which will block upgrade. So in this case, we can, in reality, do the upgrade. Let me I can just replace it. So now this upgrade is being executed. What it does, so first of all, it will create a special init RAMFS, which is booted during next boot. And then it will start to replace all the packages which are required, do all the post-installation actions, and so on. You will see it in a minute that the system is going, well, actually that it is has been created the init RAMFS and asked me for rebooting the node. And once I reboot it, I can boot it into this init RAMFS, and the rest of the operation to upgrade CentOS 7 to VzLinux 8 will be made. And after a second reboot, it will then start VzLinux 8. Let's switch back to the questions in the meantime. So there's a question from Sean Ryan. Would conversion from CentOS 8 with Plesk installed to VZ8 be supported? Actually, yes. Once Plesk will support VzLinux 8, we are also supporting conversion from CentOS 8 with Plesk to VzLinux 8 with Plesk. This is clear goal. We have this already in our roadmap. It's just not there because there's no official Plesk, no official support from Plesk for VzLinux 8 yet. But this is once we have this officially from Plesk, we will deliver this ASAP. It's not very complex operation for us to convert container running or environment running with Plesk. There's a question from Thiago. Ready kernel can be applied to VzLinux. Yes, actually in our enterprise flavor, which will become available in Q4 with ready kernel support, you can use ready kernel on top of VzLinux. So when you run a virtual machine, for example, or bare metal system running VzLinux, you can apply. So when it's licensed and you have a subscription, you will always get ready kernel updates for VzLinux kernel. So you see now it's installing already a couple of packages from VzLinux 8 repository. There's a question from Andre Moya. We implemented OpenVZ here at Caltech. So as I understand, we have VzLinux 7 plus OpenVZ 7 installed from one distribution. Well, actually, it depends, but in general, that's right. If you use OpenVZ version 7, then it's just VzLinux 7 plus container patches in OpenVZ. VzLinux 8 is out, so we are waiting for OpenVZ 8 to arrive in 1-2 months, correct? Actually, OpenVZ 8, there should be already some releases available. So not official, I mean not RTM. It's just alpha and testing quality. But for RTM version, well, it will not become available before RTM version of our commercial product. So you will have 8 already now. And also some better quality in a couple of months, but it will not become RTM before our commercial product, which is right now planned to become RTM. I mean, Virtuozzo Hybrid Server 8 in the next 9 to 12 months. Because we want to stabilize it, where we want to collect feedback from customers, from our existing partners, and want to stabilize it, increase performance and so on. Timeline for stable version is roughly in the next year. for unstable version, like for alpha, beta, so to test it, it is available already now, and there will become, well, more incremental builds with stability improvements will become available over the next time. Well, then it's fine. You can do it even right now. So my point is just not run it in production environments. So with real production data of customers, I would not recommend it. But for testing, it's perfectly fine. You can start right now with OpenVZ from 8 branch with 8 kernel and so on. And actually, I would be interested in what problems you will have or you have with old kernel. Nothing we need to discuss right now, but probably to send it just via mail. Yes, that's correct. Okay, well, this init RMFS creation takes a while. Any other questions meanwhile? Okay, so our first stage of upgrade has been finished. So you see, it showed me that a reboot is required to continue. So I just will type reboot here. And now you see that we have a new grub entry, which is called VZ upgrade init RAMFS. So let's take it. There are still some warnings and some things we need to fix in the script, but it doesn't affect the upgrade as of now. So you see that it's now replacing a lot of packages for my CentOS 7 environment. You can still ask questions. Because it takes another couple of minutes to finish it. There's a question from Andrew. We have issues on VzLinux 7 with Python. Actually, Andrew, in this case, it's also, well, it's hard to answer now what kind of problems or what is the root cause for it. But this is also good if you can inform us about the problem itself. Some packages require Python 3, some Python 3.6. Not sure if Dennis can comment on it right now, but otherwise it's probably good to just send me an email with the problem as well.
Yes, I probably can give some comments. Indeed, we use Python 3.6 as default Python 3 in VzLinux 7. We have integrated it a couple of years ago. And indeed, some packages can require Python 3, but for compatibility, all Python 3.6 packages should have such a provide. If some provides are missing, I think this is quite possible. Feel free to file a bug. We will check, and I think it's not hard to fix.
Actually, Andre, you can also report bugs for Virtuozzo Linux on OpenVZ bug tracker. There's a separate project for it where you can just fill issues like you do with OpenVZ. You can do the same with VzLinux and the same bug tracker. There's a separate project in bugs.openvz.org for it. I guess you, or maybe you have already an account on it just for reporting it for OpenVZ. You can use the same account and report issues with VzLinux. So So just bootloader is being updated now with new grub entries, and now it's rebooting again, and you see I have already my grub entries for VzLinux 8. So that's booted. So this is now first boot. It has to do some additional post configuration steps after we boot VzLinux 8 for the first time after upgrade. You see this whole process takes something like 30 minutes. We will, of course, further improve it in future. This is better right now, but it works already perfectly fine, and you can convert CentOS 7 environments to VzLinux 8. And by the way, this is just a virtual machine, so nothing very special. You can do this on bare metal as well. And you see now we have our VzLinux 8 login prompt. So let me log in. So the credentials are the same as before. There's new MOTD. So for example, here, Andrew, you see that where you can report VzLinux bugs, for example. And yeah, there are still some post sections or post configuration which is done in the background now. And now it should be ready. And we have now in etc Red Hat release that we have running VzLinux 8. There's no CentOS release anymore, which is obvious. Just Virtuozzo release. Not Virtuozzo release, VzLinux release. So that we are running VzLinux 8.4 build 623. So basically that's it for upgrade from CentOS 7 to VzLinux 8. It's a very unique capability. We are further improving it to support more applications. That's why I'm always interested in Dennis as well in getting feedback. So when you have, for example, running CentOS with desktop environment, we support such conversion or such upgrade already. But even if you run more repositories, we want to get more and more feedback so that we can add support of additional repositories if needed, and so on. So this is what we want to collect and encourage everybody to test. So please use the utility and convert CentOS 7 environments to VzLinux 8 and provide feedback if it works, what is missing, and so on. So any last questions? Okay, if not, then we will actually share the recording and publish the recording afterwards. together with additional information. So where you can download all the utilities, the Linux distribution itself, where to provide feedback, and so on. So actually, that's it for now. And of course, if you have any other questions or any feedback, you can always provide it to my mail address or at the feedback form on VzLinux.org website, and we will collect it and answer to all these questions or enhancements. And of course, you can report bugs on bugs.openvz.org, specifically for VzLinux as well. And we are going to fix it with one of the next releases then. And of course, if you have some applications or some certifications which are important from your point of view, which VzLinux should cover, we are also highly interested in such feedback. Okay, so let me close our webinar then, and hopefully we will see us soon at some event, some conference, maybe in future in person again. And as of for now, stay safe and healthy, and let's talk to everybody soon.